Hello, everybody. So, did you notice anything about Sunday that was different? So, you may not have. To me, it was a little striking because we generally do not see a red vestment on Sunday. There's actually only one Sunday that we see a red vestment, actually, two. One is Palm Sunday, and again, red is the sign of martyrdom. That's one thing that it points out. And the other time that we see red is Pentecost, which is a sign of the Holy Spirit. So otherwise, on Sunday, we generally do not see red vestments. Now go to daily Mass and you'll see them, because depending on the feast day and the person being celebrated, if the person that is being celebrated, the saint, if the saint is a martyr, the priest will wear a red vestment. And if not, he won't. I noticed this with my OCIA folk. Because again, most of our OCIAers go to Mass on Sunday. And again, we don't wear a red vestment on Sunday. So when you go to daily Mass and you walk in, the priest is vested in red, it strikes you. And it's meant to. Okay, so what does red do to us? It kind of shocks our senses. It points in the direction of something. It gives us a message. So I say this for a couple of reasons. First of all, Sunday was the feast of St. Peter and Paul, and I knew that. The reason the vestments were red was that both St. Peter and St. Paul were martyred. Okay, I don't know that we always think about that. We think of Peter, our first pope. We think of St. Paul, the writer of the epistles. And we don't often think of them as martyrs, but they were. St. Peter was crucified like Jesus, and because he didn't feel that he was worthy of being crucified the same way, asked to be crucified upside down. I don't know that right side up would be better. I don't think either position on the cross is comfortable. Forgive me. But he chose that to not disgrace the sacrifice of Christ. God bless St. Peter. And St. Paul, I think, was beheaded, thankfully not crucified. Still not a great death, but he was a Roman citizen, and so he was sent back to Rome to be judged. And the method for a Roman citizen would not have been crucifixion, it would have been beheading, which they did. I say this because within the liturgical calendar, it has a meaning. And interestingly enough, St. Peter and St. Paul are celebrated on the same day together, and the day after is an interesting feast. So let me tell you what it's called. They're called the first martyrs of the See of Rome. So see is a Catholic word. I was going to look it up to give you an exact definition, but see, the See of Rome would be the church in Rome. We have a see here in Portland. I'll get you a better definition because I'm not coming up with it. But the day after St. Peter and St. Paul, the church takes all of the other martyrs that gave up their life for their Christian faith in Rome. And there were a bunch of them. And it's interesting because what the martyrology, what the writings for the saints, for the first martyrs of Rome, talks about the persecution that was launched by Emperor Nero. So Nero was a really bad emperor. I don't know that any of them were great, but Nero was a psychopath. And what he would do, he so hated the Christians, he would throw them into the arena and really have them be torn apart by the beasts. That was part of the great sport of the Roman arena. And so the Christians were kind of fodder for their entertainment. The other thing that Nero did, and this is gross, he took the Christians, dipped them in tar, and lit them alive and put them around Rome to light the city. You know, you can't make that stuff up. Interesting, there's a movie about St. Paul. I believe Jim Caviezel's in that movie, and it's really well done. And one of the things they depict are those dipped Christians, you know, around the city. Why do I say all of this? You and I should be struck by the cost of Christianity. Our Christian faith costs something, not only of ourselves, right, but the entire Christian faith was spread by faithful people who would adhere to the faith and give it up for nothing. That is what you and I are called to do. Now, thanks be to God, in our life, our costs are probably not quite as severe. But I encourage all of us to look at our saints, to say thank you for what they endured so that you and I could be given faith as well. So my friends, it's July. You can tell it's getting hot. So I'm not a native Oregonian. And it used to kill me because, you know, the rain and everything here in Oregon, it takes getting used to. And it's almost like a light switch is turned. It turns into July, and all of a sudden, it's summer, and it lasts like 1 month. Kidding, but it kind of does. So we're in July, the weather is hot, and thanks be to God that it's Oregon, and it's not going to be all that hot all that long. Thank you, my friends. I will see you at Mass. God bless you.